Hello, everybody. Welcome to Human Resource Management, Public Administration 685, Section .61. Um, the only section that I teach in the fall. In the spring, we do 2, and in the fall, we do 1. My name's Phil Laporta. I am your instructor for the term, and I'd just like to start out by talking a little bit about how I plan to conduct the class. With experiences from the spring when we had to rejigger everything for the last 6 weeks, what worked, and some lessons in terms of how I think I'd like to move forward this semester. And also I will share with you a curveball that was thrown to me a short time ago that I'm unfortunately going to have to pass along to you all regarding opening night, September 3rd. I'll get to that in just a minute. What I learned in the spring was that the PowerPoint presentation, which I'm recording now, is something that I would use throughout the course of an evening, right? I wouldn't just isolate it and blather on with a lesson. I would just use it to kind of pace us through the 2.5-hour evening, beginning with some presentations by you all to open the class, to open the night. I'll get to that also in just a short time. A little instruction from the PowerPoint interspersed with discussion and some activities. Take a break, come back, return to the presentation. So I believe that that would be deadly to try to do on a Thursday evening when we do video conference this semester. So what I'm going to do, what I intend to do, is record the PowerPoint presentation and make it available to you all 1 week in advance of our meeting. They will typically, my experience from the spring is the 3 sessions that I recorded in the spring ran no longer than an hour. And so it was my conveying the lesson through PowerPoint, and then we would meet on the Thursday night and discuss the topics, have discussion around the topics. Unless I go on too long in these opening remarks, the opening session, our introductory night, actually tends to be a little bit shorter. I guess I come from the old school of, hey, it's opening night, let's all meet each other and, let's get out of here early. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out with this particular presentation and how we're going to have to refigure September 3rd, but we're going to do our best. So again, this opening segment, this opening session is going to be in large part introductory. We would spend a lot of time on opening night just to get to know each other. So I could get to know you and you all could get to know each other for the future weeks that we're going to be spending together. Now, I will share with you a personal point. I said I had something thrown at me, so I have been scheduled for, I'll be honest, I guess, right, a surgical procedure on September 3rd. It was the last possible date I could have ever picked, but delaying it would mean delaying things for, like 3 more weeks. And so I opted not to do that. What I am going to do, and by the way, you're going to be having this communicated to you long before you see this, so I'm sorry, bear with me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send out some dates for us to meet in whatever numbers that we can, either prior to September 3rd or prior to the September 17th second session meeting. So you'll be able to ask questions about the syllabus. I'll be able to go into maybe specific detail regarding the syllabus or the weeks ahead or any questions that you might have. We will do that, okay? So really my hope is that all we're going to be missing is sort of that interactive moment that would occur on opening night to get to know each other. So that's all I'll say about that for now, except 2 other things. You're going to have received from me, before you see this, you're going to have received from me a greeting this coming Thursday on August 20th. And then, according to plan, this lesson and all lessons posted a week in advance. So the September 3rd lesson will be posted on August 27th. I will ask each each lesson, each meeting, that you try to watch that in that week time frame before we meet. So when we do come into class, when we do have our conference on the Thursday nights, you will know what we're going to be talking about, and there will be some guided conversation through that. All right, so let me move on, and let's see how introduction night goes. Okay, I just reviewed the first slide, and I'm very conscious of my eyes like shooting up out into outer space. I think it's because I'm not accustomed to like staring into a camera on a laptop. So that's something I'm conscious of. I'll do my best not to have that occur. So by way of introductions, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. There's some slides that follow that we can skip past when we get to them. I retired from the city of Rochester 3 years ago. I worked in state and city government for 35 years, 33 and a half of those years being with the city of Rochester, and most of those years in human resource management. I worked in every aspect of human resource management except benefits. So I will never claim to be a benefits expert. Benefits tends to be one of those things very idiosyncratic to the agency, the business. I will do the best I can if you have any questions or in any way that we might kind of brush through it. So the crowning achievement of my career, I guess the last 20 years of my career, I was the city's manager of training and safety. And when I say manager of training and safety, I always want to be clear on what my responsibilities were. My responsibilities were for the city's civilian workforce. Many of you, some of you may be aware of the Police and Fire Training Academy on Scottsville Road. So I did not routinely cross over into police and fire training. Certainly new employee orientations, supervisory skills, computer skills, leadership training, we would certainly include police and fire in those programs. But my responsibility for fundamental skills, for all those other topics I just mentioned, for compliance training, was all very, very directed at the city's civilian workforce. So I was very proud of that. I was someone who wanted to be a teacher back in the college days, but got talked out of it. My second passion was government. So the fact that I became a trainer, a training management in municipal government was kind of a happy wedding between my two passions. So my course objectives, what I hope to do for all of you is to really give you the nuts and bolts of human resource management. So as you look across the syllabus, and I actually don't have one printed out in front of me, I didn't want to be staring off into a sheet of paper, so I'm just kind of going to do this from my head. But when you look at the syllabus, you will see everything from human resource law, which you're all going to participate in helping me present when we get to those assignments. Job analysis, job audit, job specification writing, which is going to be a major component of this course as you go through it. You're actually going to go through exercises on 2 different occasions. I'll get to that in just a little bit on job audit and job specifications and selection. You will see a good section on supervision, which actually used to be a separate course in public administration, and then at some point got folded into the HR course. So happy to do that. You'll see sections on labor relations, on training and development, which is my favorite topic as we move later into the semester, and then we begin to wind things down toward the end with challenges and the future of HR. And I should just say something about, I guess, the nature of human resources, which is that we may be speaking from your experience, and I'm going to ask you to be sharing your experience with me. We may be talking about companies, businesses, agencies that outsource their human resources, that have a half person working in their human resource area, a single person, or a very sophisticated operation such as my experience with the city and county. In the city, we had 36 full-time employees. We had employees in very highly specialized areas. So we had recruitment and selection and staffing. We had affirmative action, benefits, labor relations, administration, training, safety. I'm leaving something out. So very highly specialized. And a staff of 36 to do that. So you will find that in large organizations, in government, in educational institutions, but not so much everywhere else. So when I talk about human resources, always keep that in mind. I'm kind of talking about the big picture of what may be, but you need to kind of translate and relate it into what your own experiences are and how you experience human resources. And always, always correct me. I always say, well, that's not how we do it. That's not what my experience is. So I'm going to really rely on you all to make that correction as we go through this and to share your perspectives. All right. So I just skipped past 2 or 3 slides. One is the mission of the Public Administration Department, which I will leave for you to read. The other is some detail on me as if you want to know more, but something that was just routinely baked into this presentation when I would talk a little bit about myself, as I've already done. So I touched a little bit on the syllabus. Please note in the 7 lessons, the 7 meeting sessions, that there are chapters of the textbook to read. I decided to stay with the textbook as we move to online because it's a very good text. And for those of you who really want a thorough picture, or should we get shortcut on any particular topic, the Berman text does a really good job. So there are going to be corresponding readings for each of our topics, chapter 2 chapters, 3 chapters, for every lesson that I lay out. You will also see assignments listed for each lesson. So we will do a lesson. And when I say lesson, I mean in part this PowerPoint that you're going to be watching, but then also the conversations, the discussion that we're going to have on Thursday nights. And coming out of those for each and every lesson, each and every meeting week, there will be assignments for you. No single lesson assignment being of heavily weighted grades. Some are worth a point, some are worth 3 points, some are worth 5 points, but cumulatively, you would be wise to complete all of those because it is 15% of your final grade. And I estimated in doing final grades a couple of months ago that there's about a 6 to 8 point span that are realized by the weekly assignments. Maybe, honestly, maybe a bit more than that, maybe 9 or 10 points, depending on the calculation. So do pay attention to those. I will call you on those if I find things missing. So those are the weekly assignments. Oh, and the weekly assignments are kind of like, think of the old-fashioned homework, I guess maybe from grade school. You will get the assignment on the night we meet, and it will be due the next time we meet. Or, sometime 2 weeks hence, I might put a noon deadline on something for the next time we meet. I'll see what makes sense. I like to see things coming in, before we do get together. But it's kind of, here's the homework, here are the assignments, bring them back, let me see them by the next time we meet. So those are for the weekly assignments that you will see. There are topic papers, 2 topic papers. They're written into the syllabus. Don't get too far ahead of the curve on starting in with topic papers. I kind of reserve the right to change some of the wording or some of the focus on the topic papers. But the first topic paper is going to be to take the topics of affirmative action, diversity, and inclusiveness and compare and contrast the 3. And there will be a lesson on this before you're asked to be writing a topic paper. One of the things I can guarantee you is that I'm going to bang you over the head with the notion of inclusiveness, managing an inclusive workforce, which is really sort of what we are living in now. How do you engage employees? How do you make for a productive workforce? How do you not only ask employees to align with company values, but how does a business or organization align with employee values so that they feel worthy and they feel included and willing to give their best? Very important to the success of organizations. The second topic paper builds off of number one. So number one is affirmative action, diversity, and managing an inclusive work environment. Topic paper number two stays on the topic of managing an inclusive work environment and what kind of things may be possible in your work experience, in your work environment that will enhance employee engagement. What kind of things may work? What kind of things may not be feasible because of the nature of the work. So for example, I might say, hey, it would be great if we gave city employees financial bonuses for exceptional performance. Well, we're talking about taxpayer dollars, so we can't be giving away financial bonuses to city employees. So I'm going to ask you to think creatively, to think out of the box, to tell me what ideas may work, what ideas may be good ideas, and what ideas may simply not work because of the nature of the business. The last last assignment is the human resource consultant portfolio. This is where you will take your experiences of doing job analysis, job hazard analysis, job specification writing, selection criteria for a job, and find an individual, find a third party to work with and put together a portfolio where you go through 6 separate steps to present to me as your supervisor and you as a human resource professional who has completed a job audit on a position. And I will tell you right now, you're going to be practicing. You're going to see these things kind of loop through twice during the semester. I'm going to ask you to first do it for yourself. That's a little bit of practice. And then when we get to the end, when we get to the final project, it's going to be find somebody. And I will tell you right now that the key to that success is to find a really worthy subject, a really worthy individual and position to do a job audit of. Okay, so a cashier in a restaurant is not a worthy subject. I mean, no slight to anyone performing that kind of work, but I want you to challenge yourself. I want you to have real serious conversations with whoever you're able to recruit and have participate in your final project portfolio. Okay, so I think I've talked about graded assignments. I dropped down to the bottom, the off-week assignments. Those are the things coming out of our lesson when you'll have time to do those assignments. HR in the news. I said early on as I was introducing things that we open each night with presentations from you. And I've had great success in doing what I call human resources in the news, which is to ask each and every one of you in turn to find something that's come to your attention, to post it in advance in a discussion group that we can all see, and so also that we don't get a lot of replication of people talking about the same thing. And then in turn, each time we meet, there will be 2 or 3 of you who will be doing a 5-minute presentation. Tell us what you read, tell us what you learned, tell us what the issues are, and keep us informed. Lead us in a discussion about whatever that news item is. Okay, so those are going to be assigned alphabetically. So by the time I hit the August 27th lessons being posted, you will see HR in the news, and you can. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to do it alpha by first name or alpha by last name. So I honestly don't remember what I did last time or what I've done in the past. So they're going to be alpha, and it's going to be probably just one pass through. So we have 7 weeks. We'll have 2 or 3, as I said, 2 or 3 presentations in a week. You're not doing a formal presentation. I would say in class, you're not standing up in front of class. You don't need to prepare a PowerPoint presentation. I'm asking you to post an article of what you're going to speak about. and then lead a 5 or 6 or 7 minute discussion, have us have a chance to weigh in, have us give us all a chance to ask questions of what your news item is. Okay? So this is the part where we would kind of stop everything and we would actually spend a good deal of time into getting to know each other. So when we are able to meet, when we do have our off of September 3rd get-togethers, when I first meet with you, be prepared just to tell me a little bit about yourself. And also, by the way, there's going to be a student profile that I'm going to ask for you all to post, so I get to know a little bit more about you, to read a little bit more about you before I actually see you. Okay, so when I talk about the power of story, we would actually pair off and have 10-minute conversations with each other. Not everybody, we wouldn't be able to rotate through the entire class, but we would rotate through 2 or 3 sessions of pairing off and not touching on each and every one of these. Sometimes students would say to me, "Oh, professor, we're only on number 2." The point isn't to go through all 4 of these. The point is to use these as just triggers for conversation. So what brought you here today? What's your journey been that brought you into this class? What's your life experience? What's your professional experience that brings you here today? What energizes you about your work? What are the proudest things in your work, your studies, your life? What's most gratifying to you? So kind of pick 1, pick 2, and talk to each other a little bit about that. So when we meet, however we meet, I will say pick one of those and tell me a little bit each in turn, and share yourself with others so we get to know a little bit about you. And honestly, we would spend, if we did 3 rotations of this, we would be spending 30 minutes or 40 minutes. This would be a major section of opening night. So not very HR heavy, but certainly get to know you heavy. One of the other lessons, one of the just couple of lessons that I try to touch on opening night is what I like to talk about are what are the perspectives on human resource management. And I break it down into 4 areas. What's society's perspective on human resource management? What do managers and supervisors expect from their HR department or person or outsourced support? What are employee expectations? Certainly very different than society or managers. And then finally, if you are actually in the role of a human resource professional, what's your perspective? What's your focus? What do you think are the most important things in human resource management? So we would spend some time and do some group discussion and group sharing on each of these 4s. I'll just touch on some of them briefly. So society may very well be looking for HR to fix societal ills. I think we're seeing that play out now, right? I mean, just with the social unrest, with the whole response to COVID, who's taking the lead? Who is playing the role of leader? What's the human resource responsibility? What's human resources role in leading the way for pay equity? Or race and gender equity in business and industry. What would our responsibility be as human resource professionals? What does society expect from us? Okay, so there I say in the slide, overcoming societal defects, inequality, discrimination, pay equity, staying current with legal requirements is something that should be expected of us. When New York State launches a workplace violence policy for all public employees, when, again, staying with New York State, when New York State in 2018 launches a very aggressive sexual harassment mandatory for every employer in the state of New York, no exceptions, no minimum number of employees in the company. You must do this on an annual basis. You must have a policy. You must have training. So how does human resources lead the way on something like that? So the manager, the supervisor, I have a vacancy. I need it filled. I need it filled now, and I need it filled with the best person you can give me. So also, be my guardians. Make sure I don't go off the rails. Make sure that I'm legally compliant with things. Make sure that I understand the bargaining unit contract. Make sure I know the rules of employee standards and conduct. Make sure I know disciplinary procedures. Okay. So, but mostly it's get me people. Don't let me wait. I have a job to do. And I'm relying on my human resource people to fill those vacancies and fill them quickly. So that's the supervisor manager expectation. The employee perspective. What are my benefits? When do I get my first paycheck? Uh, uh, when do I accrue my vacation? How much sick time do I have? What kind of training and development opportunities do you have for me? The city, one of the things I was very proud in and kind of led the way on was that the city had a very generous um, tuition uh, tuition assistance program. We would give every city employee $3,000 per fiscal year. That would be July 1st through June 30th. $3,000 per fiscal year tuition assistance in advance, not reimbursement, but in advance for any instruction that related to job improvement or career advancement in city government. Think about that loophole. Career advancement in city government. You could be a refuse collector, right? Riding a recycled truck or collecting toters. And you could say, I wanted to get a degree in architecture. The city hires architects. I want to get a degree in engineering. The city hires engineers. At most, what we might do is to have you show that you are matriculated in a program, but if if your studies pertain to career advancement in city government, there was very, very little that I would reject on a tuition assistance application. Now, the city doesn't hire city school district teachers, so some people were looking to get a teaching certificate. We wouldn't support that because that was outside of the purview of city government. The city has really very little, maybe no social workers. So if you wanted to get a social work degree or an MSW, I would say no, we don't support that. But even within those, within the context of those, there may be elective requirements that may be needed that you might be able to peel off and have us pay for, a handful of courses, if not the core requirements of social work or teaching certification. So, so the employee expectations, and also how am I being treated? What are my rights as an employee? Am I a bargaining unit employee? Am I a union employee? What are my rights regarding the bargaining unit? So, so the employee perspective. And then finally, as I said earlier, there is the human resource professional. And this is going to vary as to whether you're in private industry, government, not-for-profit, or healthcare. So private may be very heavy on the bottom line. How do we maximize the bottom line? Government was all about efficient service delivery. I lived through um, way too many multi-million-dollar budget deficits to not understand that providing services efficiently was very, very important to us. Not-for-profit, my experience in teaching this class is that's where you're going to find the one person, the half person, the outsourced HR HR provider in the not-for-profits. I had one individual who said, yeah, we have one person and one person does finances half-time and does HR half-time. And that was it, and that's the reality of it. So, and then in healthcare, I've been very blessed with having a number of people come through this program in the healthcare industry, so I'll be eager to hear as to what is the perspective, what is the healthcare perspective on payroll, benefits, legal, and wellness programming. So the last thing that I'd like to touch on tonight is a lesson that I usually close out opening night with, which is the IPMA human resource competency Model. That says HR human resource competency model. I guess that's a bit of a redundancy. IPMA is the International Personnel Management Association. They have a very highly respected HR certification program that is available to anyone who's really interested in getting good credentials for a career in human resources. And the IPMA identifies three major competencies, three major roles: business partner, change agent, and leader. So just imagine for a moment, what does that mean? What does it mean for human resources or a human resource professional to be a business partner? What does it mean to be a change agent? And finally, what does it mean to be a leader? So business partner is that the constituent departments that you serve, the functional areas that you serve, that you know what their goals and what their objectives are, and you help them to meet it. So again, you're going to get a lot of the city experience. I'm not going to apologize for it. It was my life. But the city has fundamentally, I think, depending on how you count, 10 city departments. So police, fire, library, environmental services, finance, accounting, community development, community and business development, about 10 different departments. And we would have a staffing individual assigned to each one of those departments. And whatever the departments were that you were assigned to, that individual has to know, what is the library charged with doing? What are their challenges? Police and fire, neighborhood and business development, finance and budgeting, the mayor's office. What are the challenges and how can we partner with them to make them successful and then ultimately to make the organization successful? Change agent. What does that convey to you? There's a change coming in our organization. There is a new administration. There's new technology. There's new staffing. There's budget adjustments. How do we help usher people through those changes? What is our responsibility in human resources to help people acclimate to the new order of things? One of the last tasks that I had 3 years ago was the city going online for time reporting. So all electronic time reporting, no pay stubs, everyone needing to log on, enter the city portal, record their time. And you're talking about perhaps a third of the city workforce who weren't especially computer illiterate. We had to run training programs to help people learn how to sign on to the internet, for people to learn on how to set up a city email account, for people to learn how to access the city employee portal. We had to start from scratch for a lot of those folks. We had to usher people through that change, through that new order. And then the final thing is HR human resources as leader. What role do you play in charting the course of the organization? Are you at the table when major initiatives are arrived at, or when goals are set, or when funding is set? What is the role of human resources? Someone probably in the couple of saddest moments of my career, two individuals said to me separately at different points, well, the city doesn't really have an HR function. I kind of hesitated. I said, wait a minute, I work in city human resources. They said, no. You're not at the table. You're transactional. You do what you're told to do. You're not there as policymaker. And that's the critical thing, to be there as policymaker. So these next 2 or 3 slides are going to break this down in the IPMA competencies. You can spend some time. It's IPMA jargon. It's kind of like a model of car. You start with the basic, and here's the competencies. You then go to the next level, and you get those competencies and a few more, and you get up to the leader level, and there's all the previous plus 2 or 3 additional. So I'll let you take some time and look at those and think about how they may relate to your workplace. There are a couple of other lessons I kind of As I say, I don't have this scripted. This is like my third recording of this, though. Out of the textbook, out of the textbook. Very interesting exercise that it calls a day in the life of Maria. Maria is a human resource professional. She wakes up one morning, she listens to her news on the radio. Do people listen to radios? Um, She's having her morning cup of coffee, perusing the internet, looking at local stories that might pertain to her, and she sees news of a rise in unemployment. She sees layoffs in municipal government, uh, ideas for privatizing uh, some work functions. She sees of new department head or new leadership in the organization, labor negotiations that are ongoing for way beyond the expiration of a contract, a sexual discrimination lawsuit that the organization is handling, new state standards coming down from Albany, a new hire orientation to conduct during the course of that day, annual performance appraisals that Human Resources is responsible for rolling out to the organization, and then finally a review and update of job descriptions, which kind of keeps slipping to the bottom of the pile, but we've got to get to them. We have requests for updated job specifications, and we've got to get to those. So I found that to be kind of a real eye-opening. This is HR. This is what we deal with. This is what we deal with all at once every day. It's what I had to deal with all at once every day. Sometimes we had our down days, but other times all of these were popping at the same time. And then I close with this. I just like to leave you with a sense of what I call challenges in the public sector. Now, not all of you are going to be in the public sector, nor will you seek out careers in the public sector, but I like to show these kind of tensions that exist. So the public sector is not bottom line driven. It's not what are our profit margins. Okay, it is this set of challenges, the individual versus the collective. You know, this plays out at many, many different levels. You think about society today, you think about the United States and the debates and the arguments about my individual liberties, my individual rights, and what's the common good, what's the collective good. Okay, I'll say it, masks. So I almost decided to like put a mask on as I spoke to you tonight. But that's the individual right, the individual liberty and freedom versus the collective good. And that plays out in so many ways. Plays out in so many ways. Did the city want jobs in the city? Did the city want new job creation in the city or retaining jobs in the city? Of course we did. Why did it take 7 years to approve the Wegmans expansion on East Avenue? 7 years it took at least. To keep Danny from leaving. Um, because the individual versus the collective played out in this way. Not the individual person, but the individual neighborhood association. The individual neighborhood association, of which there were, I believe, two that came together at that point on East Avenue. And they were concerned about the aesthetics of the neighborhood. They were concerned about, rightfully so, the traffic patterns in the neighborhood. So while the collective good, while the good for the city was retaining jobs or preventing job loss, there was the aesthetic, the neighborhood perspective that we had to balance. There were many other issues with that, but that's an individual versus collective, a material versus abstract. And I guess the same would apply to here. The material gain would be jobs in the city, business in the city. The abstract is the aesthetics of the neighborhood, the walkability, the traffic. What do I want? Often I use the example, or I give the example of the Native American decision-making model. So traditional Native American indigenous people decision-making, there's actually a product now named for it. So you're making a decision today. This is a little bit about the old 1970s, song, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. What's the material versus the abstract? When you make a decision today, are you making a decision today? Are you making a decision that will impact your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren? Or in Native American culture, did you ever hear of the product in Wegmans anywhere called Seventh Generation? That every decision you make not just for today, but for 7 generations down. Okay. Modern versus traditional, the changing workforce, technology in the workforce, um, the diversification of the culture, online lear online learning. Good Lord. Um, so modern versus traditional, central versus decentralization. And this is not a one's better than the other. This is just sometimes it's good to put on a different lens. Maybe we've been looking at something the same way for too long. So early in my career, I actually worked in the city property office for a few months. And back in the early days, the city property office was located, all the property inspectors were centralized, worked out of City Hall, the basement of City Hall, and then would be given their assignments and go out every day and return every day. Then somewhere along the line, we decided, we really got to put this service closer to the people. We have to put this more accessible to the people. So all the property inspectors were sent to the neighborhood service centers. And that was a different way of looking at it, a different way of providing the service. Where are they today? Today they're back actually in the very same location, although a bit reconstructed and renovated, the very same location in City Hall, basement of City Hall, centralized. This also applies to community policing. So do we have a central policing site, an east side, a west side, or now the city is trending back to, I think, 5 different police sections, which we had many years ago. So not a better than, superior than, just a different than, a different way of looking at things. And then the final point are organizational values versus personal values. We want employees to embrace organizational values. We're going to spend some time on that in our next lesson. But more and more, the successful organization is the organization that can also embrace individual employee values and align with those. Those are the successful organizations. Those are the Googles and Apples and Wegmans of life. And we're going to spend time on that too, moving into next week when I hit you over the head a lot with inclusiveness. That brings us to the end of lesson number 1. I'm looking at the clock and it says 42 minutes and 10 seconds, which is a bit longer than my first recording of this, but my first recording of this was before I learned of medical things coming my way. So again, by the time you see this, you will have had one or more communications from me. The key to our success through this semester is to communicate, communicate, communicate. When I had to kick in to those last 6 weeks in the spring, I would send out emails, reminder emails, Blackboard notifications, individual notifications. So pay attention, communicate back. I will be as accessible as I can be to all of you, except for September 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we'll see how that goes for me, but I will be otherwise accessible. Know that you can reach me. Use the EDU account. Use the Gmail account that you'll see in the syllabus. Ask questions. Contact me. I will be as responsive as I can. My goal is to make you all a success, and I stake my reputation on that as we go forward. It is my commitment to you to make you all successful in this course. So thank you for what will be your patience around opening night, and a couple of days following that. I will be communicating with you prior to that and after that. So thank you all. Stay well. I will see you next time, and you'll be hearing a lot from me. Take care. Thanks for being here.